Hello, I'm Samuel Andreyev, and today I'm going to give you a list of 10 must-hear 20th century pieces, one for every decade of the century. All of these pieces is less than 10 minutes long, and I'm going to provide a link for each of them in the video description. Let's get started. Number 1, Charles Ives, Central Park in the Dark, 1906. It's hard to believe that this piece was written in 1906. It's so forward-thinking and fresh and radical in its approach. And yet, despite the radicality of its language, it remains rooted in the vernacular, the everyday music of ordinary Americans. And I think this is a piece that is remarkable for combining those two qualities. It starts with a very slow, beautiful, hypnotic processional in the strings with these beautiful, lush chords that gradually fill out and spread across the entire orchestra, building up into a massive pile-up, a kind of wild free-for-all with different parts of the orchestra playing in different tempi simultaneously. It is the ideal introduction to Charles Ives's work and a must-hear piece. Number 2, Arnold SCHOENBERG, Herzgewächse of 1911. This piece is situated between Schoenberg's early late Romantic style and the 12-note music that he started writing in the 1920s. And as such, it is a sort of bold step into an unknown land, an uncontrollable musical territory that I think produced some of the most remarkable music he ever wrote. This is unbelievably expressive music, perhaps some of the most expressive music anybody has ever written. And it took the language of music, which up to this point in history had functioned more or less according to universal precepts, to the breaking point. It is a piece of exquisite coloration, scored for coloratura soprano, celestia, harmonium, and harp. And the soprano famously ascends at the very end of the piece to a high F, 3 ledger lines above the treble clef. It is an amazing piece. It's only 4 minutes long. It's the shortest independent work in Schoenberg's entire output, and it's a good place to start. Before we go on, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Scorefolio. Scorefolio is an online platform tailor-made for composers, allowing you to create score videos quickly and easily. It also features an adaptive media player with which you can showcase videos, audio, scores, or even catalog entries. Many composers divide their work among a handful of paid hosting services, one for videos, one for audio, and so on. Instead, you can use Scorefolio for everything and have all of your work in one place, along with your events listings, so you can maintain your artist portfolio. At checkout, you can use the discount code NEWMUSIC for 30% off your first purchase. Try it for yourself. It might be just what you're looking for. Number 3, Igor Stravinsky, Symphonies of Wind Instruments from 1920. This piece ushers in a radically new conception of music. Whereas Schoenberg and Ives had connections to vernacular music and to Romanticism, Stravinsky starts to push things in a very different direction. This piece is notably different in terms of form. There's no concept of development here. There's no concept of linearity or continuity either. Instead, what we have is a mosaic form where little fragments of music or little static tableaus are simply juxtaposed, one after the other, and then cycled through. So we have 4 or 5 different texture types, if you like, or instrumental sonorities that Stravinsky alternates over the course of the piece. As always, Stravinsky has an electric sense of rhythm. Everything is pulsed and everything is sharply articulated. This is music that inaugurated an entirely new form of musical poetry that would shake 20th century music to its core. Number 4, Ruth Crawford Seeger, 3 songs to poems by Carl Sandberg of 1930 to 1932. A major figure of the American hypermodernists that characterized the 1930s, Ruth Crawford Seeger has not received her just due. Nevertheless, she is a major figure, and this piece is one of her crowning achievements. In this set of 3 songs, she gives free rein to her remarkable sonic imagination. There are incredibly innovative touches in this piece, such as clustered glissandi in the strings in the last song. She also makes liberal use of dissonant counterpoint, which is a technique that she perfected. And generally, this piece is a testimony to her aesthetic independence. Her career was cut short. She stopped writing in 1931 for various reasons. So she has a short work list, but it is of the absolute highest quality. And this is, again, a good place to begin looking at her work. Number 5, Anton WEBERN, Variations Opus 30 of 1940. Although he lived to 1945, Webern completed only 2 pieces in the 1940s, this and the second cantata, which followed. And of course, that can easily be explained by the disruptions of the Second World War in his life. Nevertheless, he managed to write a piece of crystalline beauty in which there's no up, there's no down, there's no backwards, there's no forwards. This is a sort of constellation of sounds that you can observe as though you were watching, well, a constellation of stars or a sculptural object turning around upon itself. It is a wonderful piece, and we see the full measure of Webern's sonic imagination with all kinds of deft and quite surprising instrumental touches and beautiful little flourishes of orchestration. Number 6 is by Karlheinz Stockhausen, Klavierstücke I-IV, 1952. So here we've definitely left behind 19th century aesthetics. We've left behind most of the 20th century up to that point, in fact. This piece sounds as though music had been completely forgotten about by civilization, and some adventurers tried to start again from scratch using an entirely new set of axioms. That's really what it sounds like. It's alien, it's unsettling, it's a bold new world, and I find it exquisite, and I find it really refreshing and bracing to listen to, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. These are very, very short little pieces. They just take a few minutes to listen to. There aren't a lot of short works like this in Stockhausen's catalog, but I think these little miniatures are a good signpost of what he was all about. Number 7 is Éclat by Pierre BOULEZ from 1964 to 1965. This piece comes at the end of Boulez's first great creative period, a period that was interrupted in the mid-60s by his increasing commitments not only as an orchestral conductor, but also running institutions such as IRCAM. And Boulez didn't really pick up steam again as a composer until the 1980s, when he emerged again with works like Réponds, which inaugurated a very new sort of style. Éclat, on the other hand, gives us this really exquisite, bold, personal approach to music that is characterized by little, tiny, incredibly refined gestures that lack any sort of forward momentum or continuity. Rather, what we have, similarly to the Webern in fact, is a kind of constellation of sound objects that keep flashing at you. And the order of these objects is not fixed. It's determined spontaneously by the conductor in a performance, which gives this piece a particular sort of razor's edge quality that I always enjoy. Number 8, Morton FELDMAN, The Viola in My Life, number 3. What can I say? This piece is just so beautiful. It's part of a series of works called The Viola in My Life, of which he wrote 4. Number 3 is the shortest in the group. It's 6 minutes long, which for Feldman is, well, let's just say that it's very rare that he wrote anything approaching that kind of a short duration. It's just an exquisite sort of still life of Feldman's reactions to the timbre of the viola that is the prominent soloist throughout this entire set of compositions. And every moment of it just gives me shivers. I think it's a magnificent piece. Number 9, Brian Ferneyhough, the second string quartet of 1980. Listening to this piece is like drinking far too much coffee and then watching 5 movies simultaneously on 5 different screens with the volume turned up to maximum. It's disorienting, it's too much, you can't keep up with it, but it's wonderful. Once you develop a taste for this kind of music, nothing else can replace the sensation of listening to it. I think Brian is one of the great musical creators of the 20th century. His music has a reputation for being difficult, for being thorny, for being hard to listen to. Just ignore all of that, dive in, listen to this piece, and be astounded by its incredible complexity, its density, and the fecundity of his musical imagination. And finally, we come to number 10, Kaija SAARIAHO, Die Aussicht, which is a piece written in 1996/1998. It exists in 2 different versions. This is a vocal piece characterized, as often is the case with SAARIAHO, by an incredible sonic beauty, a remarkable refinement in the orchestration and in the sound, and allied with something that is not often the case with composers of a sort of spectral orientation, which is a great genius for writing vocal lines. SAARIAHO is one of the very few composers in the second half of the 20th century to have absolutely mastered vocal writing. You can hear that in her operas, and you can hear this in this much shorter work, which stands as an ideal introduction to her aesthetics. So that's it. This is obviously a biased, unfair, incomplete list with many major figures missing. If you want to tell me what you think I should have put into this video, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.